What began as a routine promotional interview spiraled into one of the most explosive late-night confrontations in television history, when Denzel Washington abruptly walked off The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The ambush teered on faith, politics, and morality left the studio audience stunned and the internet in uproar within minutes. The Ed Sullivan Theater had opened its doors to the usual buzz of anticipation. Fans expected to see Colbert's signature wit and Washington's effortless charm, capped with a discussion of Denzel's latest directorial work, a drama already drawing Oscar whispers for its exploration of redemption and second chances. On the surface, the night seemed like every other stop on a Hollywood press tour. Yet behind the curtain, tension simmered. Multiple staffers later confirmed that Colbert's team had spent hours fine-tuning a series of gotcha questions designed not to promote Washington's film, but to press him into revealing his personal stance on hot-button cultural issues. When Washington finally walked on stage, the audience erupted in applause. He carried himself with the quiet dignity that had defined his career, his smile broad, his handshake firm, his voice calm. The opening minutes were exactly what viewers expected: light-hearted banter, a few jokes about his legendary work ethic, and gracious talk of the film's themes. Then Colbert pivoted. "So, Denzel," he began casually, though his eyes betrayed a sharper intent, "this new film of yours, it's about forgiveness, redemption, the power of faith, given your own outspoken Christianity. How much of your personal belief system shaped the story you wanted to tell?" Washington leaned back slightly, nodding. His voice was steady, thoughtful. "Faith, in whatever form it takes, gives us a framework for understanding forgiveness. My character, he's a man who made mistakes, serious ones. But redemption isn't about perfection. It's about trying again, making amends, walking the right road." The audience applauded warmly. But Colbert wasn't done. His smile thinned. "Right, but let's be real here," he pressed. "Hollywood is a place of fantasy and make-believe. Isn't it a bit ironic when actors start lecturing audiences about morality?" A faint crease formed between Washington's brows. The shift was small, but unmistakable. "I wouldn't call it lecturing," he said carefully. "I believe when you're given a platform, you have a responsibility to be authentic. I don't force my beliefs on anyone. People can take what resonates with them and leave the rest." Colbert leaned forward. His tone sharpened. "But here's the thing. Denzel, you talk about values, but you stayed quiet on issues your faith community is very vocal about: marriage equality, reproductive rights, religion in government. Isn't staying silent its own kind of position, claiming the authority of faith without the accountability?" The room fell quiet. The air seemed to thicken. Washington's trademark composure hardened. His jaw set. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you interviewing me about my film, or are you trying to drag me into politics for a soundbite?" A nervous laugh bubbled through the audience, but no one seemed sure if it was safe to laugh. "I'm trying to have an honest conversation," Colbert shot back. "You're one of the greatest actors alive. You've earned respect. But when you talk about redemption, values, faith, audiences deserve to know where you stand on the issues tearing this country apart." Denzel's voice dropped an octave, slow and deliberate. "The issues that matter. To who? To you? To your political base? Or to the millions of people who just want a story that leaves them with a little more hope than they came in with?" That line drew a round of applause, but Colbert pressed harder. Almost defiantly, "Hope is nice, Denzel, but hope doesn't defend democracy. Hope doesn't protect women's rights. Hope doesn't fight discrimination. Silences peacefully from someone with your platform as a position, whether you admit it or not." The studio was now locked in silence, every ear straining to catch what Washington would say next. His publicist stood frozen at the edge of the stage, phone in hand, prepared to pull him out if needed. Washington looked Colbert dead in the eye. The warmth was gone. The media-trained smile was gone. What remained was unflinching steel. I came here to talk about art, not politics, to talk about forgiveness, not division. If you want a debate, book a politician. If you want theater, put on a play. But don't use me as bait to score viral clips at the expense of my integrity. And with that, he unhooked his microphone, set it on the chair, and stood. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you. Good night. The audience gasped as Washington strode off stage without looking back. Colbert, momentarily caught off guard, attempted a strained joke to ease the tension, but the damage was done. The moment had already etched itself into late-night lore. Within hours, clips of the walkout flooded social media. Some hailed Washington for refusing to be cornered. Others applauded Colbert for pressing him on uncomfortable truths. What was undeniable, however, was that television had just witnessed a rare moment of unscripted, uncontainable real-life tone that would be dissected, debated, and replayed for years. Asterisk, the control booth was in meltdown. Producers barked into headsets, debating whether to cut to commercial. But on stage, the clash had already broken past the point of no return. Washington's voice, calm but edged with steel, rose just enough to cut through the air. I've never claimed moral authority over anyone. I share my story. I talk about what's carried me through the storms. And I make films that hopefully leave people better than they were when they walked in. But you, he pointed directly toward Colbert. You're sitting here trying to shove me into political boxes so you can what? Score points with your audience. Get a 30-second viral clip. The audience shifted in their seats, torn between applause and unease. Colbert's polished mask cracked. The smirk gave way to something sharper, more hostile. I'm trying to hold you accountable, he shot back, leaning forward. When you invoke faith and values but refuse to take a stand on the moral battles of our time, what does that say to the millions of people listening? Washington's eyes narrowed, his tone suddenly cutting. It says that maybe faith isn't a prop for your political theater. Maybe some of us believe that respecting people is more important than checking the right boxes for a late-night host. The crowd erupted in scattered applause, some clapping hard, others staring in stunned silence. Colbert pressed harder, his face reddening. So you're saying neutrality on civil rights is respect? That's your position? Washington stood. The shift was seismic. His 6-foot frame dominated the stage, casting Colbert small behind the desk. His composure cracked just enough to show the heat beneath. What I'm saying, he thundered, is that ambushing a guest who came here in good faith to talk about his work, then trying to trap him into political statements he never agreed to is not respect. That's exploitation. The audience gasped, the tension slicing the room in half. Colbert, his pride bruised, snapped back with condescension. Come on. You're a multimillionaire public figure. You can't handle tough questions. Or is your faith only strong when everyone's being nice to you? The low blow landed. Washington's eyes flashed. His voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. You want to talk about my faith? My faith teaches me to turn the other cheek. But it also warns against casting pearls before swine. The words detonated. Gasps rippled through the theater. Colbert's face drained from red to white, his mouth falling open. Did you just call me a swan on my own show? He sputtered, gripping his note cards with trembling hands. Washington's reply was steady, deliberate. I called it like I see it. A man sitting behind a desk, tearing at someone's character for sport. You tell me, what would you call that? The control room screamed into headsets. Cut to commercial, now. But Colbert waved him off, ego overriding instinct. I'll call it journalism, he snapped, holding powerful people accountable. You walk around Hollywood selling moral authority with movies about redemption while staying silent on the issues that actually matter. That's not faith. That's cowardice. The word cowardice hung in the air like a curse. Washington stepped closer to the desk, his voice low but lethal. Cowardice. Let me tell you what cowardice looks like. Cowardice is hiding behind comedy when you want to take a swing. Cowardice is ambushing guests who don't get to fight back on equal terms. Cowardice, he paused, staring down Colbert, is exactly what you're doing right now. By now, half the crowd was clapping, half frozen, and a few rising from their seats in discomfort. The air was suffocating. Colbert, desperate to regain control, stood behind his desk. But next to Washington's presence, he seemed diminished. I'm not hiding, he said, voice cracking into a near shout. I'm asking direct questions. If you can't handle them, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews at all. Washington didn't flinch. His reply came cold and precise. Maybe I shouldn't, he said. Maybe I should stick to professionals who understand the difference between an interview and an interrogation. Colbert leaned forward now, his voice rising to a near shout. Professional. You think dodging every important question while hiding behind your faith makes you professional? You think wrapping yourself in moral superiority while refusing to? Take a real stand as professional. Washington didn't flinch. His reply was cold steel. I think treating a guest with basic human decency is professional. I think honoring the agreement your producers made about what this interview would cover is professional. What you're doing, Stephen, isn't journalism. It's a hit job just with better lighting. The words landed like a punch. Colbert's composure shattered. His mask of wit and charm was gone, revealing raw hostility. A hit job. You came on my show. Nobody forced you. If you can't handle real questions about real issues, maybe you should stick to fluff pieces on Entertainment Tonight. Washington took a single step back, not retreating, rejecting. His voice dripped with disgust. Real questions? Is that what you call this? 15 minutes of traps, accusations, and cheap shots. You've questioned my faith, my integrity, my character, all under the pretense of being some crusading journalist. Colbert's voice cracked under the strain, his anger bleeding into every word. I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm asking for honesty. You've made a career out of playing both sides. You want the respect of being a moral voice without taking the heat of having actual positions. The studio was frozen. The only sound, the faint hum of the cameras and the labored breathing of two men locked in verbal combat. Washington glanced at the audience, some wide-eyed, some shifting uneasily, then turned back with something that looked more like pity than anger. You know what, Stephen? You're right about one thing. I do want respect. But here's the difference. I try to earn it through my work, through how I treat people, through the example I set. You think you can demand it while tearing others down. Colbert's voice was shaking now, professionalism gone. Don't you dare lecture me about respect. You've been condescending since the moment you walked out here, acting like you're above it all, like you're too good for real questions. Washington shook his head slowly. His voice was firm, measured. The only thing I'm too good for is this ambush, this performance, this attempt to use me for your political theater. I came here to talk about a film that matters to me. Instead, you've turned it into whatever this is. Colbert snapped back, desperate, shouting over him. This is accountability. This is what happens when someone stops letting you have it both ways. You can't claim to be a moral leader while staying silent on issues that matter. Washington's face hardened. His tone cut through the chaos like a blade. Moral leader? I never claimed to be anyone's leader. I'm an actor, a director, a man with faith. But you've decided that's not enough. You've decided, I have to be your perfect puppet or your perfect villain. Well, Stephen, I'm neither. The confrontation had reached its breaking point. The tension was suffocating, the silence between words more dangerous than the shouts. Colbert, realizing he was losing his own stage, made one last, reckless swing. Fine. Walk away. Prove my point. Show everyone what happens when you're cornered by real questions. Run back to your safe spaces and softball interviews. Washington paused. For a heartbeat, it looked as if he might explode. Instead, he straightened his jacket, placed a steady hand on the back of his chair, and turned toward the camera. You're right, Stephen. I am going to walk away. Not because I can't handle tough questions, but because I respect myself too much to keep participating in this circus. To those watching at home, if you tuned in hoping to hear about a film that explores forgiveness and redemption, I apologize for what you've had to witness. The movie opens Friday. I hope you'll judge it on its own merits. Colbert, panicked at being upstaged on his own platform, lashed out. Oh, so now you're going to use my show to promote your movie after calling me a swine. Washington turned back with a stare that could freeze fire. I'm going to do what professionals do, Stephen. I'm going to honor my commitment to the people who worked on this film, even if you couldn't honor your commitment to conduct a respectful interview. The audience sat stunned, caught between silence and eruption. The line between interview and battlefield had vanished completely. Washington had nearly reached the wings when Colbert hurled his final barb. Go ahead, walk out. But don't expect to come crawling back here when you need publicity for your next movie. And don't fool yourself into thinking this makes you some kind of hero. You're just running from hard questions. Washington stopped mid-stride. Slowly. Deliberately, he turned back. His face carried no anger, only a profound sadness tempered by steel. Hero. His voice was low but unshakable. I'm not trying to be anyone's hero. I'm just trying to be a man. That's something you might consider trying sometime. The line landed with surgical precision. A ripple passed through the audience. Colbert's face cycled from shock to rage to raw humiliation before finally settling into something dark and desperate. Get out, he spat, his voice cracking. Just get out of my studio. Security, but Washington was already leaving. Dignity intact despite the chaos. At the edge of the stage, he paused one final time, turning not to the host, but to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know this is not what I came here for tonight. I came to share something meaningful with you, a film I'm proud of. Instead, you witnessed what happens when television forgets its basic responsibility to treat people with respect. Colbert, flushed and trembling, tried to cut in. Don't you dare lecture my audience. They came here for an honest conversation, not your sanctimonious. Washington's voice cut clean through him. No, they came here to be entertained. Instead, they watched you tear down a guest for sport. I hope it was worth it. With that, he exited. The studio sat in stunned silence. Some audience members shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward, as if reluctant to miss the end of a play that had gone completely off script. Colbert stood frozen, his hands shaking on the desk. His producers waved frantically from the control booth, but he seemed unable to process the collapse of his own show. At last, after a long, awkward pause, he forced a brittle smile. Well, that was unexpected, he muttered. When we come back, we'll have our musical guest. But the damage was done. During the commercial break, dozens of audience members quietly filed out. They had come for laughter and left unsettled, as though they had witnessed something both ugly and historic. Backstage, Washington's team was waiting, phones buzzing with reporters already circling. His longtime agent approached with visible concern. Denzel, I'm so sorry. We had no idea he'd try that. "It's not your fault," Washington said evenly, sliding on his coat. His composure was unbroken. Some people show you who they really are when the cameras are rolling. Tonight, the world saw who Stephen Colbert really is. Meanwhile, on set, Colbert was unraveling. During the next break, he rounded on his producers, voice sharp with panic. "How did this happen? How did we let him turn this around on me?" "He's..." The one who refused to answer, the executive producer, a veteran of 30 years, didn't soften the blow. "Stephen, I've never seen anything like that. You completely lost control. You called him a coward. You questioned his faith for 15 minutes straight. He didn't storm out, you drove him out. And now we've got a nightmare to clean up." The rest of the broadcast limped on, but Colbert's trademark wit had abandoned him. His monologue fell flat. His banter with the musical guest was awkward, and the energy in the room never recovered. By the time the credits rolled, clips of the confrontation were already flooding social media. Within hours, #Denzel walks out was trending worldwide. Millions weighed in, most condemning the host's conduct. The fallout was swift. Ratings plummeted. Advertisers expressed concern. Think pieces appeared in every major outlet, dissecting Colbert's loss of professionalism. What was intended as a moment of journalistic bravado had exposed something corrosive beneath the persona. Washington, by contrast, emerged untouched. When pressed by reporters the next morning, he offered only grace. "I wish Mr. Colbert well. I hope he learns from this experience. As for me, I'm focused on my work and the people who support it." The film he had come to promote opened strong, earning both critical praise and box office success. Reviewers noted the irony. A story about redemption had been overshadowed by a host's refusal to show even basic courtesy. Within weeks, Colbert's reputation was in freefall. The confrontation had revealed a deeper truth that viewers couldn't unsee. The gulf between authentic dignity and performative outrage. One man walked away with his integrity intact. The other was left standing alone, on his own stage, facing the consequences of his choices.